Welcome back to Get Your Voice Out There. I'm Roberta Chadis, and I'm delighted to be bringing this program to you so that you can hear from a lot of people in the community who have great things to say. Today, we're having a very wonderful experience with Susan Kahn. Thank you for coming, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to learn a lot of things about reading and grammar and sentence construction, but the very first thing I would like to do is to allow my audience to hear a little bit about you and the inspiration that brought you to the products that you have. So Susan, thank you so much. Welcome to Get Your Voice Out There.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't planning on becoming a special education teacher, but my third son didn't seem to learn how to speak. And at age 3, he could say only 13 words, so I was worried. Furthermore, if I read him stories or tried to read him stories, he moved away. He just didn't understand them. Then I applied to nursery schools for this child, and 6 nursery schools rejected him.
How do you get rejected from a nursery school?
They didn't feel that they could cope with him. This was the 70s. This was before early intervention. This was before the special education law had gone into effect. He just looked like a difficult kid, and no one wanted him. I did eventually find a nursery school which would accept him as long as I went every day. So he and I both went to nursery school together for 6 months, and then they felt they could manage and that he was adjusting, and so I didn't have to go to nursery school anymore. But I had figured out that my son must have a learning disability, whatever that was. And I had taken my first course in learning disabilities. In those days, they knew only 15 types of learning disabilities, and my sweetheart had 13 of the 15 known disabilities. So I studied constantly. I always wanted to know more, and I was able to teach my son to speak and later to teach my son to read. One of my college professors said, "I'd like you to work for me." And he was an assistant superintendent of schools in Arlington, Mass. So I worked in Arlington as a special education teacher for 25 years. And I loved it. I had the feeling that no one would be quite as difficult as my own son, and I was right. But I kept gaining in knowledge so that I found I could do wonderful things with these students. I taught middle school most of the time, although I did some elementary teaching and some senior high school teaching. But I found that I could improve a student's reading ability by 2 to 4 grade levels in 1 year. And these are the kids with disabilities. And normal children were expected to grow 1 year in a year, and my children, of course, were surpassing them. So I was pretty excited. And then I developed a private practice, and I taught children of all different ages. And I also worked for Mass Rehab Commission because I needed to pay for my son's college education. And the only way I could do that was to work with adults because they were free in the evenings and on the weekends. I kept thinking I really need to write a book. I just didn't have any time to write a book. Now that I'm retired from public school teaching, I do have time to write a book because I tend to teach from my home from 3 to 6 and on weekends. And I desperately want to share with others how to teach your own child because I needed someone to help me when my son was struggling and nobody seemed to know how to do it. So I want to be your friend, whether I'm here or not here, and I want to publish these materials so that you can buy them or go to the library and borrow them or go to my free blog, which I publish every week, and learn these concepts because I want people to start teaching their children themselves because so often the school system is just falling down and children are failing unnecessarily. It makes me very, very sad.
You know, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm becoming more inspired to have my own students that I teach to really focus on their reading skills as well, because if you can't read and express through the reading, you're misinterpreting a lot of information as well. I know I struggled with that. But what I'd like to talk about, I was thinking as I was listening to you, about other parents and how they would deal with a situation like you dealt with, where they really didn't own the problem like you did. What kind of frustration and challenge can that be?
It's awful. You just watch the child fall apart, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, failing grades, sometimes teasing and bullying from the other children. If the student is a wonderful athlete, and sometimes that happens, then the child can ride out the academic storms. But it's pretty tough as a parent to watch your child suffer and fail. I definitely recommend that all parents become involved. No one loves a child as much as the family. And it doesn't have to be the mother, it could be the grandmother, it could be a sister, it could be anyone. And if you really have a difficult time working with your own child, hire a college student, particularly in the field of education, and let that student learn Sue's strategies, methods, and then all you need to do is supervise.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that we care the most about our children, so ultimately we are responsible. And we need to fill in the gaps. We do it in all other ways. We need to do it with reading and writing as well.
Well, before I think of other questions to ask you directed to that, I think our audience might want to see the book that you
sure.
came up with and wrote.
Well, I have 3 products now as part of my war against illiteracy. The first product is Sue's Strategies, Best Reading Spelling Method, ages 6 to 60. And that's because in my current private practice, I teach first graders, and my oldest student is now 60 years old. So I know the program works from 6 to 60. And this book goes step by step. It contains what a first grader needs to learn. But if you complete the book, you will read on high school level with 90% accuracy. Of course, that means you're going to have to use the rules all the time. You can't fool around and guess. The book contains illustrations for each concept. It contains memory tactics for each concept. That may not mean much to you, but suppose you explain to a child that S has 2 sounds, S and Z. He isn't going to remember it. So then, of course, you would have to give him a way to remember it. So I will show you that in a few moments. But it's these different ways to remember, whether they're stories, poems, rhymes, patterns, pictures. It's all of these other things that, you know, are so important in remembering. And if you don't remember, you can't apply what you've heard. And if you can't apply what you've heard and learned, then it doesn't go into long-term memory and it doesn't become part of you. So this first book will include practice exercises and give the instructor, the mother, the grandmother, the father, the brother or sister, the babysitter, whoever is going to do it, all the information needed to make sure that literacy happens.
So you can try me out on this. And,
good.
And also, you triggered my struggle with one word when I was a kid, and that was the word does.
Yes.
D-O-E-S.
Okay.
I had trouble with that.
Well, I understand that. Does is a foreign word that breaks all the rules. So there is a strategy for that. And it's to take the 2 fingers of your writing hand, whichever one it is, because there are many nerve endings on those 2 fingers and they affect all parts of the body. And with those 2 fingers, you need to trace on a hard surface, either a table or your body. You just go D-O-E-S, spells does.
And you say it out loud?
And you say it out loud, yes. And you do that 3 times. And then the message goes all the way up your arm and into your brain. And that brings us to what is multisensory learning.
Great.
Okay. Sue's Strategies follows Dr. Orton's lead. In other words, whatever you teach, you need to use all your senses, except that we don't taste letters and we don't smell letters, so we subtract those 2 senses. But we do put something into the brain by looking at it. Then we say what it is we saw, so that uses some motor muscles. Because we spoke, we heard what we said, so that involves the auditory system. We'll never remember anything if we don't connect it to some information we know pretty well already. So we associate it or connect this fact to something. And then we want to do another motor action, and again, these two fingers are just golden.
Wow.
So we would trace on a hard surface or on a paper whatever it is that we want someone to learn. So that's called multisensory teaching. Now, Sue Strategies actually has 3 parts. The first one is say what you want the person to learn slowly. I'm not good at that. Clearly. I'm pretty good at that one. And in user-friendly English with an image to support it. So let me try and teach you about S. I want you to know my name forever and ever.
Okay, that's a deal.
Okay, so we want slide 3 for S, and this is what my image is. It's a hamburg bun. The top bun is a vowel, the bottom bun is a vowel, and the S is squished in the middle.
Yeah.
And when the little S is squished and squeezed in the middle of 2 vowels, it says zzz. Zzz.
Where were you when I really needed you, Susan?
So let's look at the words on the bottom of my page. The first one is my name, Susan, which is always interesting to me because I have 2 S's. And the first one says S because he's at the start of the word. He has no choice. The second one says Z because he came in between the U and the A. And then we can look at the other words and see that it doesn't matter what kind of vowels the S is situated between. It will say Z as long as it's a vowel sound.
Right.
So in easy, the S stood between a Y and a vowel team, EA.
Where the Y is a vowel.
Yeah, if it says E, it's definitely a vowel. In roses, the S came between an O and an E. And in case you didn't know why some words are spelled with S-I-O-N instead of T-I-O-N, here's half the solution. If you say jeune, it must be an S-I-O-N produced by having a vowel before the ending. So whether you said decision with the S between the 2 I's, or confusion, or explosion, it's an easy trick. I hear a jeune, it's got to be an S-I-O-N.
So good for spelling bees.
So then I always like to add a story. So I say, well, you know, you have a choice when you're spelling words. You can use sunny S or smelly Z. Now, Z smells so terrible, and the teacher knows it, that she always puts Z first or last so there are fewer complaints. So we have some words that start with Z, like zipper and zero, and some words that end with Z, like jazz and fizz. But the majority of people always choose S if they can possibly squeeze the S between 2 vowels, as they do in raisins, seasons, and visa. So that's the S story. So what I did was I told you the rule, vowel plus S plus vowel equals Z, which most people will forget. Then I showed you the image. I gave you some examples, which are patterns, and then I told you a little story. So we did our multi-sensory learning. And if you practice the S equals Z, you won't be able to forget it, which is good.
I think this is great. And what I was thinking as you described that whole story about what we were doing, how wonderful you could use that application with other things as well.
Oh, you can use them in all
like remembering
subjects.
people's names.
Yes.
That's always a tough one. People have a really hard time. I usually say it 3 times.
Yeah, 3
But
is
now
the
I
magic
might do
number.
the Sue Kahn method.
Okay,
That
well,
would be
it
really
helps.
good. So
Do you
what's
want
next?
another one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, C is a tricky letter because it also makes 2 sounds. So slide 4, please. And most students learn at school, C says and C says K, and I say, good. Now, when do you use them? And I get a big blank stare. And then they always misread the words. So they haven't understood what's important. So then I say to them, well, do you know the old MacDonald song from when you were very little? You know, old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Oh, yes, they all know that. And then I say, well, the old MacDonald I knew grew smart trees. And a smart tree is different from any other tree in the world, because a banana tree just grows bananas, an orange tree just grows oranges, a rose bush grows roses, but my smart tree grows 3 letters, E, I, and Y. So then I have them sing this new song. Old MacDonald grew a smart tree, E-I-E-I-Y. And I also have the child stand up, and I'm not going to do it here, and make his arms extended like the top of a Y and stick his legs together tight so that the bottom forms a Y. And so then he's used his body and he's used the song. Mm-hmm. And I say, now, if you put C before E, C before I, or C before Y, it always says S. And then I show him some examples with a sentence, and ordinarily I put the student's name in here.
Okay.
We can say Roberta rides her bicycle to the center of the city. And in bicycle, we have C before Y, which has to say S, but C before L, which isn't a special letter, so it makes a K. Otherwise, the child could read this word 6 ways: bicycle, 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 and bicycle. That's a waste of time. Mm-hmm. Better to know the rule.
And people who are learning English, they struggle with that too.
Of course.
I can't think of any examples right off the top of my head.
Well, because this needs to be explained, and it's so simple. And if you're not going to be in front of one of those 3 vowels, then you automatically make a K sound, and I call that Mr. Delicious, because it stands for cake, Coke, cookies, and ice cream.
Oh my God.
So I have stories in the book in addition to this, but what I would do is I would show them the C letter. I would give it to them on a flashcard to study. I would show them the tree, give them the story about the tree, the song about the tree, the example words, and we have a few words where C makes K, cake, cream, and cook. Mm-hmm. And then the children would need to practice this concept so that it becomes their own and they can't forget it, and it automatically pops out when they read words, because many words have double C's. Concert has 2 of them. Circumference has 3 of them, and ecclesiastic has 3 of them, so it's setting them up for the future.
And you are making reading so much more fun. You really are. I'm thinking to myself as an adult, how much more fun would this be to look at the words and understand them better, so that you're not struggling with them. I know when I'm reading responsively, if I go somewhere or reading out loud with someone, it's sometimes a struggle to get the words out right. And just to have these tools, it's
well,
great.
There's another solution that we're leading up to. The way to read is to know the sounds of every possible letter in every possible letter combination. Dr. Orton analyzed the dictionary and came up with 6 types of syllables that constitute 86% of the English language. And each syllable makes a different vowel type. So then he came up with 3 ways, 3 syllable division rules for us to divide up words so that we can figure out where one syllable starts and another one starts. And then we read the words 1 syllable at a time, so that we never have to deal with a big, long, hard word. We're only dealing with a few letters at a time. It's the way musicians play music. You know, a phrase at a time, to break it up.
Yes.
And so reading is never hard. It's just that some words are longer than others. So if you learn the sounds, you blend them into the specific 6 syllable types, you make sure that you use your syllabication rules so that you didn't pick the wrong chunks to put together, then you're going to be right. I expect 95% accuracy from my students. I teach them the irregular words, the doeses and the ises, you know, by tracing on a hard surface. So Dr. Orton says 86% accuracy. Susan Kahn says I can do better because I'm going to train you on all those foreign little words that you need to know. And you'll probably achieve 90 to 95% accuracy.
Wow. Now for our audience, they are probably drooling over this. I was wondering if you would like to share how they could get a book or how they can reach you. And
certainly. Well, actually, I've published 3 materials. Well, I'm about to publish the 3rd. I have another material here. It's called 28 Grammar Flashcards. And that's because after I've taught students to read the words, they don't necessarily understand the sentence. Of course, it's possible it's a vocabulary issue, so then we increase their vocabulary. But supposing the vocabulary is fine and the reading accuracy is fine, they are stuck at the sentence level. And what usually happens is that children with language problems assume that work will always be a verb. Why should it be anything else? That's wrong. So I need to teach them about the recycling quality of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs so that they won't be tricked when they read a sentence. So if I say, I work hard, it is a verb because work tells what I do. But if I say, the overworked lady fell asleep with the TV set on, which lady? The overworked lady, so then I'm using work as an adjective. Now, if I wanted to, I could say, I've created some workable solutions for you to try. And what kind of solutions? Workable. So that's an adjective. So I can do all kinds of tricks with words because I understand the structure of these 4 symbols. And I put them as a memory tactic with card symbols. If you're a red heart, you'll always be an adjective, and the ink will be red when I mean to teach an adjective. If you're a noun, you will always be represented somewhere on the card by a green club, and your ink for the word being taught will be in green. If you're a spade, then you must be a verb, and you'll stay black. If you're an adverb, which has 4 uses in this world, where, when, why, and how, and a diamond has 4 points, that's very convenient, you will be purple and the ink will be purple. So let me show you how this works. If I were to teach
I'm getting a little nervous here.
infinitive phrase, which simply means take anything you think is a verb and put to in front of it. It's not a verb anymore.
So if I take a verb like
any verb.
write.
Okay, we go to write, now you can't be a verb. So you can say, I like to write, which is no different from saying, I like candy. What got liked? Candy, it's a noun. What got liked? To write. Suddenly, to write is a noun, replacing the direct object, just as candy was a direct object. Now, if you said, to write keeps me busy, what keeps you busy? To write.
To write?
Well, I'm spending hours a day writing books. Yes, to write keeps me very busy. So it is a noun because it's replacing the noun subject. Who or what keeps you busy? I could say work keeps me busy. I could say teach. Well, teaching is another way of making a verb into a noun by adding the ing. I've just done it again. So these tricks of being able to move the words around and know what you're doing allow you to understand what the author is really saying rather than what you think the author might be saying. So this is critical for reading comprehension. It helps all the students pass their SATs better, it helps them write better essays, and it certainly helps out for the college crowd because they need to write lots of research papers. So this gives you the fine points so that you can begin to write and vary the structure of your sentences and not bore your reader. And usually good grades depend not so much, well, it depends on 2 things, content and how well you present the content. And these flashcards will enable students to pick up on the skill of presenting content in the best possible light because they'll know their options and they'll be able to choose the best ones. It puts the student in the boss position. I think they like that.
I think it's great because it's like muscle training.
Yes.
Really, when you're doing the same things over and over again.
And slide 6, please. This is just a description of each product that I just told you about.
This is fascinating. Now, I don't know about having children, but what would you suggest to some people in the audience how they might want to approach you and get more information and use these tools?
Well, the last slide, slide 1 actually. I work out of my Waltham home, but of course I don't have time to see all the people I wish I could teach. You can phone me at 781-891-1677. But as a concerned parent, as a concerned teacher, as a concerned relative, I would go to the website, which is www.sue, S-U-E, Kahn, K-A-H-N, read, R-E-A-D, now, N-O-W.com. And from that website, you can buy the materials, you can read about the materials, and you can go to the blog page and get a free lesson each week from me on some language topic that would probably be helpful to your child.
That's great.
Now, if money is an object, I would make sure the local library buys the materials and that you check them out from the library, or you could hopefully ask your school to buy the materials and use them. Schools are very strange. They buy a product and they just kind of expect everyone to use it, whether it's the best product for the child or not. And sometimes they need the PAC group or the parents to pester them and say, our child's learning very well on this method. Why can't your teachers follow this method?
That is a great idea. Now, Sue, I have a feeling that you're working on something new.
I am.
So let's
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I've just completed writing a new book. It's called How to Create Effective Sentences. And it will be similar to the first book, 190 pages or 195 pages. It will contain instructions, illustrations, practice exercises, memory tactics, and it will slow down the learning of the elements of grammar that we did on this card here for the infinitive, and that we could do, say, on a simple noun card. The new book will go slowly and will definitely teach tactics that will help the child absorb what a noun really is, and what's more important, how do you use a noun, and how can you be sure it's a noun and that it didn't accidentally transform itself into a verb or an adjective or an adverb.
And I know this really is a great segue to reality for all of us, because I write a lot of blogs, and I know there's a lot of people who write content and books. People want to be an author. It's just so important to be able to write clearly. I know I'm stuck sometimes starting a sentence with a word that ends in ing, and I am really enthusiastic and excited about going through your material more thoroughly. I feel very blessed to have been able to get you out on our show. I can't thank you enough, because I really feel this is so valuable. We read every day, and we work with other people. So I just want to applaud you for the work that you're doing, and I hope that this program helps at least one person, and I know it will help many more. So thank you so much for coming to be on. Get your voice out there, and I'm just happy to have met you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm equally thrilled to have met you. I admire what you do very much.
Thank you.
And I'm delighted that I've had an opportunity to tell people that I want to be their friend. I didn't have a friend to show me these techniques when I needed them with my son. I learned them, I taught him, and I believe in all of you out there. You can learn from me, and you can teach the ones you care about.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you for watching Get Your Voice Out There. I'm Roberta Chadis, and I look forward to bringing you more people like Susan Kahn. Thank you.